that is dangerous in my case. Glad to have you with us. Settle in, join us for the next few moments. We have some words, I think, of encouragement to share with you and some pertinent words for this season of our life. We are all in a bit of a challenging season in some areas. One of the things that I would like to caution you just right at the front is when things get chaotic in one part of life, refuse to let it filter over into other parts of life. Try to keep it isolated in the one part of life that's most affected and deal with it in that area. Once it begins to spread, it's like a disease. It's more difficult to contain, more difficult to constrain. But if you can keep it, if it's a financial area, keep it in the finances. Let's not let it filter into our emotions regarding family and friends and children and things of that nature. Let's not let it interfere with our social life in the sense of cause us to be angry. Let's not pull emotions from a bad financial situation over into other parts of life. Least of all, let it affect our standing with God. So that's a little bit of a caution to get started with this evening. And I understand we're all in an unusual time. I actually spoke with a pastor today, and we went over some of the challenges that, in particular, pastors were facing today, because it is a challenging time for them. They have churches, and some of them have millions of dollars worth of assets, some that still need to be paid for. Others are blessed to be debt free. But regardless, they still have these buildings to take care of. And then because of restrictions, only a certain amount of people can come in, conduct themselves in a certain way. And that's about the extent of it. Then they have to go away. Then these pastors are left to reach an audience online, reach an audience in the church, and wonder if the two shall ever meet again or if they'll ever come together in what was once called a normal service. Well, that's just part of the issues that some pastors are facing, and it's challenging to many of them. But let's move it away from just a pastor or just that gift and just the institution of the church. Let's bring it down into the Christian community and down into families, in particular, your family, or in particular, your life. Let's get it down into that dimension, which is a very smaller, constricted dimension, but yet we can indeed find some issues there that need to be cared for. Most of us have been in Christianity long enough that we know how to put on the company face, dress to success, move into the public and smile and shake hands with people and greet them. Of course, with the virus going on, you don't always get the opportunity to shake hands and hug necks like we used to do, but you exhibit friendliness, you have a cheerful voice, a cheerful demeanor, and you act as though all things are well. Well, tonight, I want to move beyond that exterior and let's get on the inside of that. Let's get on the things that you think about when you pillow your head at night, when you are alone and sleeping or can't sleep, and the clock goes winding into midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and so forth. And sleep eludes you, and there's nothing there but the spinning of the mind and the treadmill that continues to roll, and it just will not stop, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Some ride a roller coaster of highs and lows, ups and downs, and over time, inconveniences can become depressing. Again, what starts out as an inconvenience and a bit of a challenge over time can circulate through our emotional system and begin to release other dimensions of emotions that are harmful to us. It's that area that I want to deal with this evening. I don't want you to feel abandoned in any way. And it's easy to do that because everybody seems to be taking care of their own to the best of their ability. They're working very hard, but there are uncertainties that abound. Some don't know where their next paycheck is coming from. Some don't know if it will be enough. Some don't know if they will have mercy from some of their creditors with which they have to deal. Others have children, school debts. Others have children and feeding those children, educating those children, childcare for those children. Sometimes they are kept at home as parents begin to work from home. And the uncertainty of all of that with families close together, you really find out who you like and who you don't. And that's kind of a nice way to put it because tempers do get short. Close proximity sometimes breeds conflict. We don't want to ruin relationships because of an uncertain external life that we find ourselves having to live. So I want to deal with that this evening. I want to deal with that in your life. If your marriage is at risk, then let's deal with that this evening. If your finances are at ready to go over the edge, then let's deal with that this evening. If your emotions are so out of balance that you feel like you're going to lose it any minute, let's deal with that issue of life. If there are thoughts of destruction, self-destruction that come into your life, let's deal with that issue tonight. Let's not ignore the inevitable. The masses may not see your individual discomfort and pain. The masses may not notice what you're going through or that there's any difference in your life because they're paying attention to their own families, their own lives. Again, it becomes almost a survival mentality if we're not careful. Listening to the news of late, you seem to get a fatalistic piece of information. Things are getting worse. They say they're going to even get worse than this. Some people are tremendously affected adversely by the virus. Others it hasn't touched. There's such a dichotomy between the two extremes. And then we have some in the middle that have tasted that but have gotten through it okay. So we have to embrace it all. We can't deny any of it, and we can't pass judgment on those on one side or the other. We live by the dictates of our heart, and according to our faith, so be it unto us, and we walk this out. But there are some that are struggling. I mean, seriously struggling, thinking about bailing out on family, thinking about quitting a job and just moving to the mountains somewhere, just getting away from it all. Some are ready to drive off a cliff, ready to end it all. I'm not just saying words tonight. This is a serious situation in some people. And some have businesses that have stood long successfully and now are threatened by the very recommendations of our country regarding a virus that has seemingly swept, well, it's called a pandemic for good reasons. It's affected the world adversely. It absolutely has. We lost a very dear minister friend this past week to that virus. Our hearts are sad because of that. You've, I'm sure, known people that have gone on to be with the Lord during this particular season. But this evening, I want to talk to you as strong as I can on the subject, if you can believe. If you can believe. And when I read that, I cannot read it in Mark chapter 9, verse 23. I cannot read it without thinking Jesus knew we would have trouble believing. Jesus knew circumstances would be screaming the opposite of what his word says. Jesus knew there would be challenges that would face us that we would look at and wonder if we're going to make it to the other side of that challenge. Can we navigate this challenge successfully? Now, I don't know what you're facing this evening, but I know the one that can get you through what you're facing. See, Jesus in Mark chapter 9, verse 23 and 24, he addressed a father that had a son that was afflicted. And the father cried out for Jesus to help his son. And response of Jesus was in verse 23, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And then verse 24, an enlightening verse that says, and straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. And I think this embodies most of us in these two verses. If we can believe, we know that all things are possible. But there's a big if, the if there. The big if says, if we can get past the circumstance, if we can get past the adversity, if we can get beyond the uncertainty, or if we can, in the midst of uncertainty, reach for something that can only be seen with the eyes of our recreated spirit. If we can reach only that dimension of the spirit where there is stability, there is certainty, there is a promise that has been fulfilled over and over again, and God remains faithful to his word. He remains consistent to his word. He is the Lord our God, and he changes not. And in this, he says, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And then the verse next goes to say, help thou mine unbelief. He said, Lord, I believe. It seems like a contradiction in terms. I believe, help my unbelief. I believe, help my unbelief. One commentary says, Lord, I believe, but tell me how it works. I really do believe I've seen things you've done. I've witnessed things you've done, but I don't know how this works. And he's in essence saying, I don't know what I have to do. I don't know what my son has to do. I don't know what we have to do. And in the final analysis, there was nothing else to do except believe. Jesus didn't say, if thou canst believe and give an offering. He didn't say, if thou canst believe and give your last dime. If thou canst believe and walk 10 miles. If thou canst believe and get to a certain preacher. If thou canst believe and not have to deal with internet church. There were no stipulations on the if thou canst believe. It was just simply, if you can believe. What a promise Jesus made to this father. And really to everybody who dares to believe, even in your situation, your uncertainty, that's screaming through your emotions saying, you're not going to make it. You're weakening now. And there's no strength left for you to fight back or push back. You're just going to have to take it. Your nerves are at the end. I don't mean to be a pessimist this evening, not by any stretch of the imagination. We've come through Thanksgiving and many spent Thanksgiving depressed. We're going into other holiday seasons now that are prolonged. And these prolonged days of uncertainty and shifting and things seem to get out of order. And we're trying to give. We're trying to remain engaged with the reason for the season. We're trying to get through the holidays, get to New Year's Day, get beyond New Year's Day. If I can just get into 2021, then some of you probably need to be like me. And because of 2020 being the way it is, I've canceled December. In my thinking, there's not going to be a December. I'm starting 2021 tonight. Absolutely tonight. Tomorrow it will be 2021 to me. In my mind, I know the calendar will defy me, and I know the screaming emotions will defy me, but in my mind and in my heart, I'm starting fresh, and the blessing and harvest that I have in 2021 is going to be translated into me or transitioned into me in this last calendar month of 2020. But Jesus made this promise, if you can believe, all things are possible. Now, all things are possible to those who believe. All things is a Greek word, and the commentary says it's an all-inclusive word that throws off all limitations. All things are possible. Yeah, they're open for anything to happen. So whatever your situation, if you can believe, anything can happen because you are believing. Because it's not I don't know how it works, but I'm just going to believe anyway. I don't know how the car works, but I turn the key and trust it. I don't know all the time how God works. Everybody like to explain a miracle, how to get one, how to do this. I've even done that myself. And when I finish, I feel like so inadequate to go through these things, because although I'm a list person, so much of God is not a list. It defies the processor in my mind between my ears. I love to have a checklist and check things off. I'm a step-by-step kind of person, but God's not always a step-by-step person. Here, he's not. He doesn't give me a process. He just says, if you can believe. He doesn't give me 3 keys to a miracle. He doesn't say, if you do it this way all the time. He just says, if you can believe, all things are possible. I'm open for the all things possible. The word possible is a form of the word dunamis, which we talk about as being dynamite power regarding the Holy Spirit sometimes. And that's what we use here. The word possible has the connotation of dynamite here, and it's used essentially to depict the strength, not just of a stick of dynamite, but the strength of an entire army. If you believe, and if you can believe, how would you like to know that a whole army of God is moving for you and moving to bring provision to you. The strength of an army, when a person believes, it opens the door for power. It opens the door for strength. Yeah. And the ability to work. And that power is so mighty. It's like that full force of an entire army. It's moved to operate on your behalf. And how would you like the full force of an army to be at your disposal? It's there if you can believe. That's exactly what happens if you can believe. I do get excited about this. I don't want you to pillow your head tonight with worry, with uncertainty that is keeping you awake. We're going to take a walk of faith tonight, and we're going to believe God's promise to be the antidote for everything that we're facing and everything that we're going through. For every ounce of uncertainty, I can't change the prediction of the masses, but I can anchor my faith to a promise of God that is more certain and more stable than any word of man or any edict that man could ever give. But there's more. There's more than just all things are possible. And again, it concludes by saying, to him that believeth. Now let's take that apart for just a minute and we'll close this out. In the Greek, this tense means that all things are possible to the one who is believing, not one who has believed, or not one who's going to believe, but one who is presently believing. It's an active action. It's a process that we are presently in, one that is believing and keeps on believing. And the beautiful thing about this, it's that faith is not a race. Faith is not a race that you run. It's a walk that is done. You walk in faith. We live by faith, not by sight. We don't run by faith. We live by faith. We walk by faith. And again, this walk of faith means that you go doing your daily duty. Sometimes it's boredom. Sometimes it's uncertain, which we're talking about this evening. Sometimes it has other characteristics to it. And sometimes it challenges every fiber of our being and stretches every ounce of biblical wisdom we have. But this word believing has to do with our methodical walk. We reject highs, we reject lows, we stay steady on the promise of God, and we just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You want to beat anxiety? Anchor your faith in the promise of God and walk. Walk by faith, not by sight. Walk it out. Walk the process. It's slow. Miracles don't happen just every day at the snap of the fingers, but you keep walking and you gain bit by bit until one day you look back and realize, I've received that for which I have prayed. It wasn't a big explosion. There were no chill bumps. There were no falling out in the spirit moments. There were no running around the building moments. There were no dancing in the spirit moments. There was just the process of my faith moving me through adversity, through uncertainty, through my fears, through my emotions, through my depression, through my desperation, and got me to the other side. And I look around and here I am in abundance of stability while the world is shaking to its core. The Bible said everything that can be shaken will be shaken. We put these things dispensationally and we often get them all out of order. But sometimes we can take a scripture and although we don't build a doctrine on it, it does describe what's happening in our nation or what's happening in our life. In our life, the things that can be shaken are being shaken. And if you look around, the things that cause you uncertainty are things that are temporal. Temporary things that can be shaken. There's a part of you that cannot be shaken. Find that part. That's the part you live. That's the part that you live in. That's your belief system. That's what you believe in, why you believe it, and why you embrace it. This is where you find out if your belief system works. Oh, it preaches good on Sunday, it shouts good on Sunday night, and it dances good on Wednesday night. But does it work on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? When the rubber meets the road, will what I believe stabilize me in an uncertain season? Will it lift me up in the midst of my depression? Would it rescue me from just battle fatigue that I get so tired and so weary I don't want to go on? Is there some way that all of this that I believe can set me on a solid foundation and let me know that I'm walking on a solid road? I'm not walking on shifting sand. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. It's a guarantee to the one that is presently believing for something to happen. For the believing one, anything and everything is possible. What about you and your faith? Let's close this out here in the next few minutes. Faith is a walk. We said that's not a run. What do you believe? Find out what you believe. Sometimes we believe God's a healer because the preacher said so. Let's find out if God said he was a healer. Yeah, find out for sure. Find out why you believe what you believe. Is it just because somebody said so? If it's because somebody said that about Jesus, then you only know him by reputation. His reputation is that of a healer. But when he heals you, then you don't just know him by reputation, you know him by revelation. It's revealed to you personally, he is a healer. If he is a provider, and you only know that because you've heard testimonies in the church and you've heard the preacher say that, and your pastor says God's a provider, if that's the only reason you know he's a provider, then you know him by reputation. But if he's provided for you, you know him by revelation. And there's a whole different story there. If you hear a testimony of someone whose emotions have been on the brink of suicide or been on the brink of just getting institutionalized, heavy medication, and if you hear the story of that person being healed by the power of God and restored to normal living and happy living, then you only know him by reputation. You know what he is. His reputation says he does. This one says it, that one says it, the other one says it. There is some validity in reputation. But when he does that for you, then you know that by revelation, and you can speak from firsthand. You don't have to say, well, they say. He's a stabilizer of emotions. They say he's a healer. They say he's a rescuer. Well, they say can only get you so far. Pretty soon you're going to have to convert that they say into a I know because it's happened to me. I'm a firsthand recipient of the faithfulness of God. I know this by divine revelation in my spirit that he is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he can do. Now, if you're believing right now, you're in a position for the ability of God to move against your problem and bring you the result for which you seek. If you're walking in faith and staying in faith, it's only a matter of time until things begin to change. Yeah. Let's get our walk of faith in gear, and let's determine to stay in faith. The Bible said a double-minded man's unstable in all his ways. You can't walk in faith one day and doubt the next day. The Bible said, let not that person think they will receive anything from the Lord. Let's get our walk in faith in pat. Let's get it in gear, and let's stay in faith. And when we make that rock solid commitment, we're going to begin to experience the truth of God's word and the bringing forth of what God's promised. And it may not be an explosive miracle. It may be due to your walk in faith. So when somebody says, what are you believing for? Just say, well, I'm walking it out. I remember getting injured in sports. And if they had the coach come out or medical attendant come out to ask you some things, sometimes it wasn't a big deal, or they thought it was something that could, pain would subside in a bit, they would say, walk it off. And you just start walking it off. And pretty soon the pain would leave and you would get to feeling better. You may be bruised up the next day, but you finished the game and finished it well. We're finishing the race strong, my dear friends. We're finishing it strong. I don't want to lose anybody. I don't want anybody to drop out of the Christian life. I don't want you to get so discouraged that you're ready to quit. I perish the thought of that. I want to stand with you. I want to believe God for your families, for your children, for your grandchildren. I want to believe God for your jobs, for your companies. We have entrepreneurs that listen to us, that follow us on Facebook here. Vital people for the kingdom. We have significant corporations that are tied to high level influencers around the world. God has blessed us, God has blessed them. But I will tell you this, there is no threat against your corporation or against your company that God cannot turn it around for good in your life. You may not be able to broadcast your Christianity and your belief system around the world, but I'm telling you this, your example of how you conduct your business is as strong a witness for Christ as any words you could ever say. He didn't ask us to go tell it. He just said, be a witness. You will be what you do and how you do it will be words in people's ears, and they will know you are a person of integrity. Whatever you're facing this evening, let's believe that God's going to do it. If we get ourselves in gear, our faith in gear, and we start walking this out with a deep resolve and commitment. Father, I thank you for this audience. They are the best. I'm blessed to have them as part of my journey. They're an encouragement to me, but tonight, many of them have serious needs. Uncertainty plagues many. Emotions betray many. Tempers flare. Tensions mount. Finances are scarce. Children are irritable. We don't know how we're going to get through certain things and how we're going to navigate it. And then we ask, how much longer then can this go on this way? Father, I ask you to move into those situations as only you can move. Do what only you can do. Honor the walk of faith, not the race of faith, not the run of faith, not the swim of faith, not the drive of faith, but honor the walk of faith this evening and bring desired outcomes to those who are believing, because your word said, you said it, if you can believe, if you can, all things are possible. And the Father said, I believe, but I don't know how this works. You're going to have to show me how it works. And Jesus's reply was, he rebuked the spirit, and the young boy was made whole. So I would submit to you this evening, there's not a believe and, there's just if you can believe. That's what he said. If you can believe, all things are possible. You want a step by step? There's the step, one step. Believe it, do it. Amen. Give me your thoughts in the chat feature next to our lesson this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been a blessing to your life. I do care for you. I'm glad that Thanksgiving is over. We did give thanks. We had a great Thanksgiving, our family, and I hope you did as well. And some of us are not built for holidays. Not a particularly big fan of them. I just think one day's like another, but then that's an old guy. But I will celebrate the birth of my Jesus. I will celebrate his coming to this earth. And we'll do a thing at Christmas and at New Year's. But to God be the glory for all the things he has done. God bless you this evening. Get some good rest, and we will talk again very, very soon. Good night, everyone.